Doing, guys?
Good, Andy. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, just to kind of get things started, kind of looking at Jason Bean's play in the opener, what do you like most about what he did for you guys offensively?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm excited about with Jason. One, he's pretty fleet of foot, right? He's he can run around well, makes some things happen beyond, um, maybe when a pocket breaks down, and then there's some quarterback run game stuff that adds some stress to defense. But I think what I'm most excited about probably is the two touchdowns that he threw were actually plays that we had called earlier in the game that he missed. And actually, that 4th and 10 conversion was the same thing. Said, here's what happened. If we go back to it, here's where you need to get the ball. And all three of those plays were strikes, when we got back to it the second time. And so in the past, I've dealt with scenarios where guys struggle to make those corrections from week 1 to week 2, let alone within the same game. So for him to do that tells me that his upside is still just rising, right? And I think he'll continue to get better every day. Coach Z doing a great job working with him, and the other guys. And so the fact that we can go back to a play and he can digest the information that we're giving him about here's what's going to happen, here's what the throw is going to be, and then execute it. That was probably what I'm most excited about.
And are there maybe a few areas where you want to see him continue to improve? Are there any things?
You hate to say it's something like, learn how to manage the game and stuff like that. But I mean, it's the young man's first game here, and there's some expectations and there's some growth that are going to occur, procedurally. And there's some things that we have to do a good job as coaches to make sure that, we could take some things off his plate that way. Through the years, you've had guys, you've been able to coach guys that, are 4-year starters, and how they can manage the game and the things that you can ask them to do, are very veteran-esque of quarterbacks. And he's not quite there yet, although he'll develop to that spot for sure, I believe.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about preparing for Coastal. I mean, it sounds like since they played Citadel, and that's a triple option, they didn't really play their normal defense. Obviously, you guys can look back at last year, but I was just wondering about the prep. How do you kind of handle that when you're going to see a different defense than they played last week?
Yeah, you look at what they did last year, and it was pretty consistent. You know what I mean? They have an identity. When you look at their defense, I mean, you got to think some of those guys are 4-year starters. 5-year actually, right? Because with the extra year, so they have a ton of experience back. I mean, you look at all their film from last year and who they are. There's no reason for them to change what they're doing. They're playing with a lot of confidence. They know what they're doing. They're executing it at a pretty high level. So you can hypothesize that they'll keep doing what they've been able to do last year. But yes, it was a different, kind of offense that they played last week, and what they did defensively was unique and specific to the Citadel.
And do you think there's any pros or cons for you guys just heading into that kind of unique situation?
Well, I mean, you kind of know, you have an idea, I guess, a little bit of what their structure is and what they're going to do. And you can evaluate their personnel pretty thoroughly because they're all returning starters. And so you know what they have. But they're an execution team, so we got to do a good job of putting stress on them in certain ways that we do within the offense. And we got to go out there and be an execution offense to combat that. So, there's some advantages because you feel comfortable about, knowing what they're doing. But then there's this game of, you know what they're going to do, but, are we going to be able to get it done against what they're doing, right? And so one of my favorite quotes in all of football, and I think I said it before here, is it was a Bill Walsh quote, and he said it in his book. He said, you can never simply reduce the game to the point where you just blame players for not physically overwhelming the opponent, right? So it's our job as coaches to make sure we're doing a good job putting our kids in, in a position where they can execute, and if where they're going to line up, those things. What are we doing schematically? What are we doing within the week, within the game, within our training, more importantly for us, to allow our guys to be able to go out there and block with what they're doing.
You guys played Torrey Laughlin late in the game, especially that final drive. What did he do to earn your trust at the running back spot?
Well, you come in, he's a tremendous athlete, right? And he's kind of been a jack of all trades from playing receiver. He played quarterback before in the past, so he's got a great understanding of the game of football and what he's doing. But, with having some injuries, as you guys know, as that game unfolded, going, through camp, going into that game, getting our best athletes in the field and giving us a chance to, effectively run the ball and protect and throw the ball to the running backs out of the backfield. He certainly fits that bill. So he's been able to understand what we're doing. He is a diverse athlete, and we want to be able to use him that way.
I think that's maybe been a complaint of fans in the past, is there have been a few guys who have come through Kansas that the talent is there, but for whatever reason, coaching staffs maybe haven't found a way to get them on the field. I'm not asking you to speak on past staffs, but I guess how much of a priority is it for this one that when you do have an athlete like that, that you find a way to use him, even if it's maybe not the way you think you would?
Well, I will answer that in a very general statement of that the system, right? The system are the players. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So whatever you think you're doing offensively within a system, you have to have the flexibility to be able to utilize, since we're talking about Torrey, a guy like Torrey, right? Now you have to be careful that as a coach, you're not asking kids to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's always the challenge, right? So you start cross-training players to diversify their abilities on the field, and next thing you know, they're not executing any of them at a high level. And so we always want to balance those things when you talk about using guys in a lot of different ways. But you can't also be in a situation where you say, well, he just doesn't fit what we do, right? And in the situation we're in, and we want to turn this program the way we want to turn it, we have to be able to utilize our players that way. Okay. So, and he's exactly a great example of what we're talking about here is that, okay, how do we utilize that guy? You know, how do we help him get on the field? How does him being on the field help us? What ways can we do things that are very natural to him that allow us to distribute the ball or get the ball to him in space or whatever it might be? So to do those things without having to reinvent yourself, I think is a critical part of what you have to do foundationally offensively.
Mm-hmm. And then last thing I wanted to ask you, Trevor Cardell, just what you thought of his performance in the first game.
Well, I think he played 20 some snaps. You know, I'm happy with where he's going and the direction he's going. I tease him because he's in my position room, right? I work with him every day. I said his first snap of college football, you know, he went out there and kind of got high. And he took it right in the chest. Guy came up, safety came up, hit him, knocked him right down. So I say, hey, welcome to college football, big boy, you know. But I was so excited at how he responded because the rest of the time he's like, okay, here we go. This is what it's like. And he went out there and, you know, he kind of took the shot and then got back in there and he got dirty and mucked it up a little bit. I thought him and Mason both played pretty well. You know what I mean? They did a nice job. And they're both continue to develop really, really well with what we're trying to do. And they add some multiplicity to what we want to be able to do.
Hey, Andy, when you were at Buffalo, did you have a guy who could run like Bean? And did you guys do a lot of quarterback run game?
We had a young man named Tyree Jackson, who's with the Philadelphia Eagles right now, actually playing tight end, who is tall, is 6'7", 240 some pounds back then. He ran really well. A lot of people made comparisons to him and Colin Kaepernick. And Jason's probably linearly a lot, you know, fast. Jason's, you know, he's got track speed, right? So we have had that before, and how much you use it, how much it works when the football is live. You know, that kind of depends on what happens when guys start getting tackled and everything like that, and how you feel about the depth at the position, which, you know, last week we talked about that a little bit. I feel pretty good about all the athletes that we have in that quarterback room. So you have some depth there, and that allows you, I guess, allows you a little some comfort. You don't feel like, oh man, we have to protect this guy. We got to put him in bubble wrap, you know? Not that we're trying to go out there and make our quarterbacks cannon fodder, but we want to make sure that, you know, we're being safe and smart with what we're doing and the things that he's doing. He's carrying the ball and put a lot of stress on the defense and hopefully create some longer runs. So long answer to the question, we have had some of those guys in the past, not as many as we currently have now, which is exciting to us and what we're trying to do week to week, game plan wise.
Yeah. Last question from me. Just what was your take and breakdown on the offensive line? And then is that something when those guys are learning a new system, they've only had 4 weeks, that you see getting better incrementally over a longer period of time?
Yeah, it is. Not to make comparisons to the past, but when me and Lance first started working together back in Wisconsin Whitewater, kind of reminds me of then, in that we had a different group of offensive linemen coming in, kind of learning a new system. You don't really have spring football to do it. So you got to come into fall camp. And we talk about, just from a program wide, not necessarily just offensive line, but certainly them, their growth from week 1 to week 2. And I expect it to be really, really high. and and sharp. We noticed it today in practice. I was just talking to Coach Fuchs, our O-line coach, before I jumped on here. You know, their communication, the way that they're playing together, right, this week, the things that they're getting on the same page about, which, you know, last week when you look at maybe some of our negative runs, it was always just one guy, and every guy took their chance being the one time where, gosh dang, he just didn't get off that double team fast enough to pick up the backer, or you know, maybe his eyes were bad, or the linebacker leverage, you know, he didn't recognize it. And it was always just one little correctable thing that they take from and learn from that. And they kind of been able to apply it to this week. So I expect that those guys are going to just every week, to your point, just keep getting better and better and better, which is, you know, what's how it should be. Right. And we got to get them to, regardless of if you win by 50 or you lose by 50, that's what you have to come into work on Monday and do. Right. Just keep getting better every day.
Hey, Andy, Lance talked on Monday a little bit about maybe trying to nail down more of a rotation at the running back position. And I was just curious what you saw from Devin Neal, what you wanted to see, and what you hope to do with him in the next, you know, few weeks.
You know, we probably didn't get to see what we wanted with Devin Neal because we just didn't get any sustained drives going, especially early in the game. You kind of go into some of those games, okay, we're gonna get this guy in the third series. We're gonna get this guy in after X number of carries. And when you look into it, you go 3 out, 3 out, 3 out, or whatever it was, you know, there's no rhythm there. And so next thing you know, you start rotating backs in when they really aren't necessary to rotate them in, then you have no rhythm. So the depth of your running back position will show up a heck of a lot more when you can stand the field and sustain some drives, which we need to do a better job of offensively. We will. So I'm looking forward to him. You know what I mean? With a lot of our reflections, like, hey, we got to be able to rotate those guys in a little bit more and do that, but we have to be able to stay on the field because you can't go first down, second down, third and long, you know, try to stay out of those predictable situations offensively to be able to get those guys in the field and do some of the things out of the backfield, carrying the ball and as receivers that we want.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Andy, the 4th and 10 you talked about that Jason being converted, he told us that the previous one was when he got sacked. So can you just talk through the progression of those 2 plays and what you saw from him there?
So they had, you know, and we were prepared for it. Some, I guess, not well enough for the first time, but the second time we had it. But so they brought basically the same pressure. It would have required our running back to be able to pick up the linebacker that was blitzing. And he did. And it kind of spooked Jason a little bit. It kind of moved him off his launch point, kind of put a little bit of a panic mode in him and missed the progression. He probably would have had Kwame Lassiter wide open down the middle and come to the sideline right after that. And Coach Z grabbed him and said, here's what's going to happen. Kwame's wide open down the middle. The running back picked it up. We're good. Just, you know, relax. And honest to goodness, same exact picture on 4th and 10, same exact pressure. Running back stepped up, picked it up. Great rhythm and timing throw, except this time it was to Mason because of how the safeties are playing off the hash a little bit. Mason catches it and obviously keeps the drive alive. So I alluded to it earlier about his ability within a game to listen to what we were saying, you know, and take that feedback and then make it count was awesome, which again is exciting for us, the staff, because that stuff isn't always natural. It doesn't happen all the time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.